right. Welcome back to Deeper Foundations with Blake Compton, and hope you enjoyed Construction Confessions. Yeah, let's dive back into kind of the next part of Compton Construction. Earlier you talked about having some of these bigger projects like the Idea Foundry. You're kind of moving and grooving. How long were you operating as Compton Construction before your father passed unexpectedly?
Yeah, so we founded the company in 2012, and then he passed away in August 8th of 2020. So
Okay.
about 8 years, 8 9 years, and I mean, 2020 was just such a crazy year of transition, anyways. I mean, for the whole world with the pandemic.
Right.
I was going through a divorce, but I think about like the story of the company, and we were we were kind of hitting our, I don't know if I want to call it like our sophomore stride or junior stride. I don't know, somewhere in the like second third generation of the company. So
Right.
in 2012 we found the thing. We're doing whatever it takes to run. Over 13 and 14, it's growing and it's growing fast. And I bring on two business partners, and then in in 14 and 15, both those business partners stay for 2 years total. So they're like 13, 14, 14, 15.
Yeah.
And then I go back to running it myself. But meanwhile, the company is growing at 300 to 400% every year. And so we quickly become, a $10 million a year plus construction company,
Nice.
leading like with the, kind of most successful moment being 2017, when like everything was going right in my life, or at least it seemed at the time.
Yeah.
And my dad was for the ride as a project manager the entire time. He was a mentor. He was a leader. But like as the company grew, he only went into the spaces that I asked him to go into, and other than that, he wasn't like, I don't need to be CEO. I don't need to be the owner. I don't need to be this. I don't. He's like, I just want to see you happy, and like, and when I retire, can you just take care of me? Like,
Mm.
and that hits pretty hard sometimes when I think about that,
Yeah.
especially because when he started in 2012, I just like would pat him on the back and joke. I'm like, just give me 5 years,
Mm.
and I said that for 8 years.
Yeah. Right.
And so, like at some point, you're just like, man, I wish he would have taken that retirement up.
Hmm.
Um, but like the generation of the company was just like everyone just knew like Harold was there, and everyone just loved working with Harold.
Yeah.
Um,
And at this point, you were starting to build people that were sticking around.
yeah,
You mentioned Jeremy Miller earlier. You talked, you had some business partners that kind of came and went, but at the same time, there were, architects and estimators and project managers that were staying for 3, 4, 5. I mean, you got some employees now that have been there for pushing 10 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So really starting to build a family and people who enjoy working with you, enjoy working with Harold, and Harold being there 8 years, if his passing wouldn't have been so unexpected, who knows,
yeah.
maybe he would have never retired
Right.
or had it kind of always been around. So yeah.
And that's such a great like acknowledgement, because I do remember like while the company grew, like we didn't necessarily grow profitably. Like we made money, but like you look at it at the end of the year, you'd be like, man, you did $15 million and you made like 1.7%,
Hmm.
and it's like it's money, but it's like you're supposed to be making a lot more than that. And like our accountants would tell us that you're like you guys need to change things. And a lot of it was like, I mean, I was in my 20s running this thing, and like
Yep.
it was growing so fast. I didn't go to school for it. I wasn't trained in it, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I was trying to figure it out. And so like when people started staying, we started making more money.
Hmm.
And it was in 2016 that I got into meditation, and when I started to change how I felt about myself and how I showed up for people, we got more profitable. And that's when like I realized how important core values were, and like and energy in the room, and how you show up for people and how you present yourself, can affect everything.
Hmm.
And I spent a lot of time working on that. And uh, 2019 was this like year of coming back, because we had this amazing 2017, and then 2018 like it tanked. And then 2019 was like we were reworking things to go, how do we make this? How do we fix some things?
Right.
And we started to get it right, and we started to make some money again. And then 2020 was like we had the best first quarter in the company's history ever, and then everything fell apart.
Yep.
And it would have been probably the best year ever had that not happened. And we were just flowing, and then um,
Right. At that time, I mean, the pandemic is just kicking off and everybody's just pulling back. I mean, people aren't going to work. You're not going in.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and the work that we were doing, and this is like, so my dad died of a massive heart attack, and he was on blood pressure medication. He was going to the doctor. He was on blood thinners. He was working out. He was active. He was eating healthy.
He was playing soccer.
Basketball, swimming, roller skating, golfing.
Dang.
He was also smoking a lot of weed, and he was smoking a lot of cigars.
Mm-hmm.
And he was having a good time. He probably drank a lot of beer, and so he was kind of all over the place with his health. But I do remember now in retro, as I look at that last year of his life, I saw all these signs that I didn't see as I was living with him, because like the last project he was on was like really hard on him. Like the client wasn't that great of a dude. He was yelling at him a lot and getting into a lot of fights. Mm. And they'd be like 6 a.m, and my dad would be like in tears. Like, wow. I just yelled at this guy, and like, I can't believe I'm like so upset right now. And he'd be like shaking. And I remember just like I'd just be there for him, and I would just give him space and love him. But now I look at it and I was like, man, that wasn't him. Like something was going on. Like something was like everything was harder for him.
Mm-hmm. And this was 2020, 2021. Did he pass in 2021?
No, he passed in 2020.
2020.
Yeah, so this was like the spring of 2020.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe like even the winter still. It might have been like January, February kind of thing. Because I kind of stopped going into the office, I don't know, we had the shutdown, and then like I kind of stopped going to the office in the summer.
Yep.
Around June. And I started getting really depressed. And my last moments with my dad over the summer were I didn't leave my house. I was so depressed from my divorce, and I felt so kind of callous to the world because of how unfair it felt to like lose everything to this pandemic, and just be in this dark place. And so I couldn't walk out of my house. I was living in an apartment in Franklinton that I owned with my ex-wife at the time, or my wife at the time, and I couldn't even walk to land grant to get beer because someone would ask me how I was doing, and I'd be like, I want to effing kill myself, and I just don't care. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't want to share that with people, so I just hid.
Right.
And only a few people even saw me during that time, and my dad was one of them. And he'd come over, and he'd be working. He never stopped working.
Yeah.
He kept going into the office, probably because he didn't believe in the pandemic, to be honest. But he'd wear his mask, but like other than that, I'm gonna guess he didn't care. And he enjoyed working, and so he would come over at lunchtime and bring me a Tommy's BLT with fries, and eat lunch with me. And then there'd be probably a day a week he'd come over, right before the end of work, and hang out, and we would just like watch a movie together, just sit there. And like a lot of times I'd cry, or I'd like just be dark, and he would just be there and just be with me. And
I didn't know this part of the story. Yeah. I didn't know that you were kind of, suffering from depression, just from the pandemic and whatnot. I thought it kind of like started and kicked off when your father passed, but you were actually like already starting to feel the effects of everything getting shut down, the world kind of being a little screwed up, and a lot of uncertainty. And so your dad was like there for you,
Yeah. The darkness for me really stemmed from just the kind of the failed marriage, and like going through the divorce and the darkness of that separation.
Okay.
And
that was happening in June-ish?
Well, no, I left the marriage on January 2nd of 2020.
Okay, gotcha.
So the first 3 months were me like outside of that situation, and just like all my energy was into the external, nothing internal. And my business wasn't affected. It was later. It wasn't till the end of April. And so as other of my friends' businesses were getting affected, I was just giving them my all. And I even had like an email, a daily email that I wrote to like over 100 people, 100 business owners, about like what was going on with the pandemic that day. The state, federal, city and the left and the right and the in between, and I wrote everything, and I would write a little story, and I would get experts to like provide information, and every day I was just updating, and I did that for like a month,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just a way to like help tell people that there's hope.
Yeah.
But it was also a way for me to not deal with my own shit.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I used so much energy to do that, and so when it finally affected me and I couldn't like do anything about it, and I was just like, I'm just losing. I have to, like, everyone's losing and I have to lose too.
Yep.
Um, that's when I blew up and I was just done. And yeah, that summer was a really dark time that my dad was just there for me, you know, in and out. And to the point where in June of 2020, like I realized how negative I was, and I went to the doctor and I got on antidepressants for the first time since I was a kid.
Wow.
And I was on the antidepressants for about a month of July, and then the day my dad died, August 8th, 2020, I could not cry when I saw him. Like I could feel I should cry, like it makes sense, and I was blocked, and I was just like,
Because of the
yeah,
antidepressants.
because of the antidepressants, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is not how I want to live my life. I don't care, like what's chemically wrong with me, because I should be able to feel feelings like this in this moment. This is not a thing that should be blocked.
Right.
And so like I like went cold turkey, although I was only a month in.
Yeah.
And just like threw the pills out, and yeah, and it was really important to me to do that, because then the following week was like planning his funeral and everything, and dealing with family stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
those were really really hard. But it was good to be able to feel feelings.
At that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, in July, your dad is one of the very few people that are coming and visiting you during this really dark time in your life. And then, take us back to, the moments leading up to you finding out about his passing. Kind of sounds like, again, depressed, you're at home alone, only a couple people that you're seeing, and then you get this big news.
Yeah.
What was it? What was that like? If you go as
Yeah.
deep as you want to, be as vulnerable as
Yeah.
you want, but like, what was that like finding out that your father had passed?
So the last living moment I had with him was at Brewdog Franklinton.
Mm-hmm.
And the story there is that like all for like 2 weeks he had this project that he was probably going to retire on. Like I was planning on, like, he was going to do this big project with his old friend in Newark, Ohio, which is down the street from where he lived. And I was just like, he's going to retire on this project. It's going to be a cool story. And he wanted to bring this guy and their investors and the mayor of Newark and economic development people to Franklinton and show them the artist studios at 400 West Rich and the Idea Foundry, and talk about like what's going on in the neighborhood and how they could recreate that in Newark. And I was just like, cool, I don't want to do that. And he's like, Blake, I need you here. I need you to just give me the afternoon. And so August 7th of 2020, I walked the buildings with him, and I remember being like so out of energy and no desire to be there, but I was just trying to show up for my dad. And then we all went to lunch at Brewdog. It was the only place open in the area. And I remember like sitting there just really not wanting to be there. And like, that was my last moment with my dad. And the comical thing for me was that like when we got on his phone after he passed away, the last like 20 photos on his phone were just pictures of QR codes, because he never learned how to like scan a QR code. So like when he was sitting there with me, I remember him going, "Oh, God damn it, I don't even know how to use these. Give me a freaking menu," Like he's just taking picture of QR code over and over again.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was my last moment with him, was at the Brewdog. Now I don't know if I talked to him the next day, because that next day was the day before his birthday. It's the day before his 64th birthday. And
So his birthday is on 8/9.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And so he was 63, turned 64. He went golfing all day with his brother, and they went to that job site, that project that was difficult. We had actually hired his other brother, so his other brother Rob's been working for us since then.
Yeah.
He joined in February of 2020.
Okay.
It's time to switch a job, But
Dang.
so Rob was working on that job. Harold went there with his brother John, and they went golfing all day. And then he went home and he played poker all night with all his friends, which he did every Friday night. He played poker, and then yeah, he went to bed and just didn't wake up. And so the next day, um, he so it was August 8th. The next day, it was a Saturday, and I had plans that day. I planned on playing in it. I'd gotten very dedicated to League of Legends and was a very dedicated computer gamer in the pandemic year. And there was a big tournament we were going to play in that day, and I was just like watching film and like getting ready to play in this tournament. And it was like, I don't know, noon.
This was post Killer Queens era.
Okay. Yeah. And my older brother, called me, and I remember like when I saw his name on my phone, immediately in my head it was, you want to get dad a birthday present last minute, and you didn't plan ahead. Let's figure this out. And then he I pick up, and he's just like, dude, dad's dead. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, he's fucking dead, dude. And then I'm like, whoa, okay. Like, what's going on? And he was just started to like ramble. And in the background, I could hear his wife, Bryce's wife, like kind of like cackling and shrieking about something. And, what I could understand was basically like, dad always wakes up early, and he usually sleeps with the door closed, and the door was open, and he's still sleeping. And so around noon, Bryce was like, what is this guy doing? He never sleeps in this late. Mm-hmm. And he went in there and like tried to wake him up, and he was just cold to the touch. Like he had been dead for hours. Yeah. And so they're freaking out. And I just remember being in a cold sweat in my apartment, like in a stupor, just like packing my bag, like trying to figure out, what am I packing for? Like, am I going to be there for a week or a day, or why am I even packing? Like, what's going on? And when I had talked to Bryce, like he hadn't told anyone else. And
in the family.
Mm-hmm. He just called me. And so like, I just had to start calling people. So from the drive from Columbus to Granville was like the worst call over and over again, because I had to call my mom and my sister and his brothers and his sister and like cousins and like just anyone I thought needed to know. I just started calling and telling that, and like it was just disbelief, like I just remember like my sister yelling at me. My mom was like screaming at me, like she just didn't believe it, and like and because I'm coming from Columbus and almost everyone else is closer, by the time I get there, there's like 20, 30 people there.
Right.
And the cops were there. And because he died the way he died, and they called an ambulance or something, I don't know. Like the cops were there, and like when I walked into my house, like my family house, like they were like, you can't see him. And I was
really?
like, well, I am.
Bullshit.
So show me how I can. And they're like, well, we're going to have to be there and with you. I'm like, be there and with me. I'm like, my dad just died. I need to see him. I have to go in there. You're like,
yeah.
And like, because the whole rest of the family's like, they won't let us in there. I'm like, well, I'm going in.
Why? Because they viewed it as a crime scene?
Yeah, it was a crime scene.
Okay.
Yeah. It was a crime scene. In fact,
because there was a death, but there was no explanation.
Correct.
Like they just.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
They can't just make the assumption that he died of a heart attack.
Yeah.
Like I wonder if they treat that all deaths like that.
They might. I don't know. I just know that it was a really difficult moment to have to deal with police officers in that way, and they're like heartless. I mean, that was a heartless moment. They let me in there, but it wasn't because they had a heart about it. It was because I was being a jerk.
Right.
And
right.
And then when I was in there, Dad's phone was ringing, and I was like, "Can I pick that up?" They're like, "It's evidence. You can't touch it." And I'm like, "Are you effing kidding me?" I'm like, Spence Sunderland's his best friend. He's called him 3 times in a row.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so then I called Spence on my phone and told him, and he was just like devastated. And I'm just like, yeah, I mean, like I just remember how hard it was to feel feelings, and at the same time, like,
right,
like how much grieving was going on in everyone's heart.
Sure. And you had kind of taken it upon yourself, consciously, unconsciously, to, let everybody know that your father had passed. And maybe at this point you weren't necessarily aware of like energetics, but you're taking on everybody's emotional experience. Like you're having your own, right? But then each call that you're making and you're letting the next person know, the next family member, the next friend, and getting their reaction, that is kind of like embedded in you. You know, you had those each individual experiences that then you carried into, you know, having to be the leader in the family to say, no, it's okay for us to go see him, you know, and stand up against, you know, the police officers, whatever it was. And so that's a tall order. And to not be able to fully feel those feelings had to be kind of an interesting dance between taking on so much and then also not feeling things at the same time.
Yeah. It was, yeah, I mean, I feel numb to it when I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all piled together when I think of that whole week. You know, the death day was one day, but then just like the following morning, like, you know, the children all met and we were like, okay, we got to plan this whole thing out. We're gonna talk about things, and then there was like everyone was coping differently.
Yeah.
And me and my sister were like kind of like the professionals in it, and then my younger brother and older brother were this dog.
She's tearing up at the story, man. You
Yeah.
know, perfect timing. I think she just kind of feels into it. So this is our friend Jeremy's dog. So her name's Lucy. She's an empath.
Yeah, she can feel it.
She's feeling it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, like my older brother having the one that saw dad and had to deal with it all, like he wasn't dealing with it at all, like very well. I mean, he was drinking in the morning and just really like numbing himself. And my little brother couldn't even like barely go into the house and was living in disbelief of the whole situation and was really angry. And then me and my sister were like, okay, we got to like figure this stuff out. You know, like how do we figure this out? Like what is there to figure out and how do we do it? You know?
Mm-hmm.
And you know the family decided to make me the executor of the state, and which was a whole level of responsibility that like I was up for, but was really difficult to do with just the different personalities to play around.
Yeah.
And
you're 34ish at this time.
33. Yeah,
34?
I was 34, turning 35.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And keep in mind I was going through a divorce, you know. So like my ex-wife actually showed up that day that he died, and I was just like, she's not supposed to be here. Mom, can you deal with this? Like I don't want her to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, like if my ex hears this, like she was doing a loving act when she showed up. She brought a bunch of food for the family.
Yep.
And you know, she was caring in her own way. It was just like it was too much for me in that moment, you know, like
for sure.
And
you also got Compton Construction in the background.
Yeah.
You know, employees.
Yeah, I mean,
pandemic in the background.
You know, like I never once even thought about what it was like for everyone else at the office because, you know, like everyone just found out all of a sudden. It was like at work. I don't know if it was that Monday or if it was that Saturday, but like everyone was just like, oh my God, Harold's dead. Like, what? You know, like all of his projects, someone has to do something. And like, there's just all this stuff that has to get figured out now. And like, you know, and, you know, for anyone that's a business owner, I highly suggest having,
a plan.
Well, life insurance.
Life
a plan, yeah, but having a life insurance policy for your employees. It's really cheap to get a small one. We had the cheapest one you could get, a $25,000 one. And without that, like it would have been a complex situation financially for our family.
Yeah.
And with it, we were able to pay for the whole funeral and pay for everything that had any cost to do with his death.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was just like a saving grace for our family if we didn't have that policy that my company provided him.
Yep.
So that was, yeah, but I just think about like, you know, so the funeral happens, and the moment in the funeral that I'll never forget that I did was when I went up to do my speech in front of a couple hundred people, I just sat in silence. And I told everyone, I was like, hey, I know that there's a lot of you I'll never see again. And so if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to take this moment in for a little bit. And I just like looked at everyone in the eyes and just took in the moment and just like breathed it in. And it was a really, really powerful moment. And really, it was just really beautiful to see how much love there was for my dad and for the family in that moment.
Yeah.
And I was glad that I was able to be like have my wherewithal and like just sit in that presence rather than like too stuck in feelings or too stuck in like the speech or what I had to do or what I had to say. It was just like, no, I'm just gonna
Be present.
be present.
Be present.
And yeah, and I remember like up until that moment, I was just like, I've got something to work for. I'm gonna get this funeral taken care of and like get this all. And then the next week, I was just like, I probably need to be on suicide watch. Like I was so dark and I was so lost. And I remember going like that month. So in August, I went to like look at that one project that he was trying to do with his friend in Newark. And I remember telling that guy, I'm like, hey, I'm not good. Like I shouldn't be here, but I'm here because like dad wanted this to happen. So like I'm gonna have to get my team involved, but like I'm here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I looked at like another project, and I remember it was a potential project down the street from where I live, and I remember like just being so angry. I was like, I thought the designer was wrong, and I thought the building owner was dumb, and the client was dumb, and like I was just like, man, I don't want to feel this way. Like this isn't why I'm in the industry. It's like to feel this negative energy.
Yeah.
And I went to my brother-in-law and I said, hey, I can't do this. He's like, well, okay, just take the day off. And I was like, no, I don't think I can come to work anymore. Like I don't know when I can come back to work, but I can't. It's gonna be a while.
This was Adam.
Yeah,
He was
my
okay.
brother-in-law Adam. Yeah.
Yep.
He was my general manager at the time, and I remember I actually went to every superintendent. Like I went to every single job site and I had that conversation with them. So I didn't talk to the project managers or the office team. I went to the guys out in the field.
Yeah.
And I had a one-on-one with them and said, I'm not working for a while because I'm going through this divorce and it's really hard on me and I don't know what to do about my dad's death. And so my last time in the office was sometime in July of 2020, and I didn't walk back into my office till July of 2022. And so I took 2 years off from like full-time working.
Yeah.
There were things that I did that were related to work and things that I did for the office, but yeah, it was a journey.
I bet. I mean, that is a lot going on in the world and a lot going on for yourself personally to kind of deal with. And I think, taking a step back and time to yourself was the right decision. We had met, in 2021, somewhere like that halfway mark of you stepping away from your company, maybe a year or so after.
Yeah, it was like early summer, late spring. I would say it was like April or May.
Yeah.
2021.
Yeah, that we met. And so, if there's anything else that you want to share about that time, I don't want to take that moment away from you, but we can kind of go into what it was like to operate your business or just live life after losing your father. You didn't go to work. So what did you do, from the time of his passing up until that July 2022 mark?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it was a tale of a couple of parts. I mean, the rest of 2020, I really just played video games and I just ignored everyone.
Yeah.
And I probably drank a lot of beer. I was doing mushrooms for a bit until I had a couple of really bad experiences because I was doing it by myself. I'd literally do mushrooms and then try to play video games. And it was like, it was just tripping my balls off. And,
yeah,
I was playing online competitive video games. So I was
League of Legends.
Yeah, League of Legends. And, yeah, there's enough times where it was just like not fun, and I was just like, okay, this is not fun, and just, I'm not gaining anything out of this. But yeah, I just drank a lot, and then in 2021, I started to, it's the kind of the restrictions lifted, and I started to go back outside and go to land grant and hang out with people and make friends again, and I started down a plant medicine journey with ayahuasca, and that was what really let me like process my dad's death and process my divorce.
Yeah.
I was still going through my divorce in 2021. It was a long divorce, and I was still trying to get my house back. I was still trying to figure out my finances. At that time, in 2021, like I couldn't pay my credit card debt, and I was getting into pretty bad debt because of just the cost of lawyers and like just the cost of my life and what I had to pay for. I was just kind of in a really dark place around that. And thankfully, I still had a bunch of amazing people in my life that just didn't care how negative I was. They believed in me and they wanted to see me be the version of myself that I deserve to be. And
You had a handful of people that were kind of checking in on you
yeah,
after your dad's death up
yeah,
until, 2021, 2022, and knocking on your door, getting you to get out a little
yeah,
bit, checking in on you. And then also kind of pointing you in the direction of, hey, if you go and try this, or you meet with these people and work with plant medicines, whatever it was, that, you might be able to start getting back on track.
yeah. That was the thing that like got me walking again.
Mhm.
And there was a there was this repetition of life that really helped. And my dear friend Christopher, who owned a building a block from my apartment in Franklinton, he where I had previously had a video game club and then subsequently had an art gallery there, but in the in between he was getting ready to move a restaurant into there and he needed to redevelop it, and he was just like, I will hire you to be my eyes and ears and help me run this thing because I'm not always in Columbus anymore, and I'll pay you personally and like you can just do this thing. And I was just like, that's enough. Like, yeah, I can do that. And so what happened was every morning I would wake up and I'd walk down the street to the coffee shop, get a burrito and a coffee, and I'd walk back to this building and I'd check on Paul Frere working on the building. And he'd be like, oh God, there's this issue with the structural thing. And I just got to, and I'd like take a couple pictures and I'd walk home and I'd eat my burrito and I'd go on my computer and I would like mark the drawing up, call the structural engineer, call the inspectors, whatever, get the thing done, print it off, walk back out there, hand it to Paul, be like, do this. And I'd be like, oh crap, cool. And then he would like fix it. And I just did that for, several months. And on in between, I'd walk over to my friend Andrew Lumberg's art studio and he was building this giant slingshot. And
Over in
over
Franklinton?
in Franklinton.
Yep.
And I would just like, I treated it like Cheers. Like I'd go in the morning with a coffee and we'd all stop and drink a coffee and BS. Um, and like after a while, like I'd be like, "What are you doing with the slingshot?" And then he'd say what he was doing. I'd be like, "Hey, do you think about this?" And then next thing you know, he'd be like, "Can you help me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can help you." And then I helped him with permitting, and structural engineers, and all these like city things that he wasn't prepared to do. And at the time, now he knows how to do those kind of things. And in return, he taught me how to oil paint. And so like I just started to like create this like creative energy, one day at a time and through friends and literally community, and that's what like started to get me to flow. Although I will say like my equilibrium was really weak, and so working 8 hours, 10, 12 hours a week was as much as I could do,
Mm-hmm.
and otherwise I get really stressed out and I like really needed a lot of like recovery time.
Yeah.
um
So your nervous system was still a little
was
off.
yeah, it
off.
was very shot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was when we started to connect that I was really starting to hit my stride, especially when I got my house back and I got excited, and I had sold a building and I had some money and I was able to like put some money into my apartment that I was moving out of and put some money into my house, and
Yep.
just kind of invest in myself in a way that I'd never done before. And um, and meanwhile, my company's running without me, and I'm collecting a salary, and my brother-in-law's running it, and he's running with a couple other people that have been there for a while, and they're making money, but it's not really growing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some stressors. There's some things in the background that are going on between me and my brother-in-law around how he's running the business and how I'm acting up around him,
Yeah.
around his executive decision making, which is like was a legitimate concern for him, and like any leader that has like a any business that has an owner that is not involved in the business has to have a clear line of control in what they can and can't do and say. Otherwise, you're going to undermine the whole system. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you like, hey, I've got a CEO, but when the owner shows up, the CEO is no longer the boss, and I get to make all this decision. Well, that's not real leadership, you know.
Yeah.
And so there was some like dancing around that and lessons that I learned forever from that experience. And then going into 2022, I really I started to do some more work and was working closer to full time. I was actually project managing some projects for Compton, and we were I was working closer with my brother-in-law and the director of construction, and there was just some more conflicts going on with my brother-in-law and I. And sometime, it was actually, I'd done a double ayahuasca ceremony, 2 ceremonies in 3 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and just was really on like the path I wanted to be on. I knew exactly who I wanted to be, and I knew which direction I was going.
Yep.
And then the universe is like, cool, let's pivot. And was
Let's
just
test you.
yeah,
Yeah.
And so then my brother-in-law like brought me in. It was July 5th of 2022, and was just like, hey, put in my 2 weeks notice, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna go get this other job.
Yep.
Um,
I
and
remember that week. I was building some raised garden beds in your backyard, and
Yeah.
I remember you coming back over, and you were like, "Well, my brother-in-law just quit.
yeah,
Looks like I'm going back to work."
yeah. Because in that moment, for me, when you talk about core values, and you talk about like energy, it's like there's this. Like when I left the first time, I left with the expectation that everyone was going to leave me. I
Mm.
wanted it to fail. I wanted everything to be over. I wanted to crumble so I had an excuse to quit, like
Mm-hmm.
quit life, you know? And no one left me. And they kept, I mean, people left, but like the people that mattered didn't leave. Um, and they kept the company going, and they kept the company making money. And so when Adam said he was leaving, my brother-in-law, I knew that it was like, well, I can either tell everyone that I don't care and, you know, let them figure it out, or I can show up and show how much I care.
Yeah.
And so I chose the latter, and I showed up. And I remember I took, it was Arthur and Jeff. I took them individually. I like that day I like went to Jeff up in Dublin and had drinks with them, and I went to Arthur and talked to Arthur and like made sure that they were okay with me coming back too. Like they'd run the company for 2 years, and I didn't want to just show up and be like everything's different again,
Yeah.
you know. And yeah, but I also showed up, and I was like really blown away by the culture. And at first I thought it was the culture that they had created without me, and it was a culture of fear.
Ah.
And I remember like 2 weeks into it, I realized that that fear was my fear that I had given to them, and they were carrying on. And I was just like, holy crap, like this has to stop. Like I don't live this way anymore. And
Yep.
I'm like this scarcity mindset, this like people are out to get us, and you know, like everyone's here to screw us. Like all that energy's got to go.
Yep.
And so we just started to change it. And as we changed it, like the company changed, and it became the thing I wanted it to be. And yeah, the last 3 years have been like me trying to, I won't say perfect it, but grow it up to be a sustainable business where like all the arms, all the divisions are operational and functional and healthy and represent those core values that we want to honor, and that my dad created, helped me create, you know, all those years ago.
Yeah. 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 So maybe this is just a shot in the dark, but you know that time that you had taken off and gone through that really difficult time kind of sounds like the whole dark night of the soul, you know, thing where you go through this really difficult period in your life, and then you come back out of it and you insert yourself back into, let's just say, the real world, or you know what your life used to be before all that went on. And yeah, so let's kind of talk about 2022 to 2025, and you coming back into Compton Construction, revitalizing it, starting to take some of the lessons that you've learned, you know, maybe through your plant medicine journeys, which I'm sure that's a whole nother couple episode podcast.
Right.
I'd love to talk about all of that with you, especially because we've shared that path together many, many times. And we continue to do so to this day.
Yeah.
But, you know, fast forwarding to, let's say, like the last year or two, you know, 2024, 2025, what have you been up to, and how do you see Harold's kind of legacy continuing on within Compton Construction? You know, again, I talked earlier about how people continue to talk about this man. I've worked for you for about a year now. We're actually approaching Harold's. This would be the 5th year, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This Friday will be his fifth death anniversary.
Yeah.
And would have been his 69th birthday. Nice.
Yeah. 69th birthday.
Yeah.
Nice. And so, yeah, just tell us a little bit about how his legacy continues on and kind of like drives you to be a better person, to create a business that isn't just about construction, but it's about a legacy. It's about a vision. It's about relationships with people. It's about serving your community. You know, you do such a great job of kind of, I don't, how do I want to say, just like hitting all these different facets of business. You know, it's not just about the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot to unpack there, but I think one of the things that I'm proud of, and I just got to do this for the third time last Friday, was, we created an award in his name, the Harold Compton Legacy Award.
Yeah.
And I love that it represents him, and also it doesn't really have like a full explanation. I think that that's kind of fun for me, and probably how I live my life. You know that.
Yeah.
But it was originally created because Paul Frere was retiring, and in 2022.
Yeah. Paul being one of the OGs in your life.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, and I didn't tell the whole story, but like Paul worked for my grandpa's Compton Construction in 1976.
Okay.
He worked for, the OG Compton Construction when he was like 16 years old. And then he worked for my dad in the 90s, like off and on, like 90s and 2000s. And they worked together in the 80s. Like Paul always worked for a Compton. And like he trained me and taught me everything I knew. And then, he was retiring, and it was just like this moment of like, well, he was also the first Compton Construction employee to hit 10 years. Because, it would have been the only other people it could have been was Jeremy, which he left at 8, and then me and Harold. And so like Harold died, and then I stopped working for 2 years. So like, even though I like still collected a salary, and I could say I didn't leave, Paul was the first guy. And so we created this award, and Paul received it. And then when Jeff Burling, who was our director of construction, who was also a leader of the time when the business could have failed, he stepped up and ran the show, and like really grew up in the industry with us. I mean, he started as a superintendent and worked his way up to being, project manager and then director of construction. When he left, it was a really special moment to give him the award. And then the other leader, Arthur, just retired, I guess, for the third time to go and be a teacher on last Friday, and we gave Arthur the award. That's a one way to like show, the legacy of Harold is in the literalness of the legacy award, but like just getting to share his story.
Yeah.
And like there was a really cool moment that I could feel, and I didn't really get to fully acknowledge last Friday when the whole company was there, and like seeing my uncle cry. My uncle cries because everything I do at those meetings reminds him of my dad.
Yeah.
He says how I talk and how I move my hands, my mannerisms, and so like it's an honor to have his brother there, and then my uncle's son, or my cousin, works there too, and like there's these other people that have worked with my dad here and there over the years, and like they all have their stories, and I hope that that's how we continue it on, is because like Jeremy talked about in his podcast that I hope you guys listen to, about his moment with Harold, where every early on it would be just Jeremy and Harold at the office, and like Harold would come in at 7 and Jeremy would get there at like 7:15, and like they would just drink a cup of coffee for like an hour until I showed up. And as soon as I showed up, Dad would work. But before then, like he was just telling stories, and he'd tell the same stories over and over again. And he'd take his glasses off to tell a story. Yeah, he'd be like, that reminds me. And I used to get in project meetings with him. I would be like, come on, Dad, we've heard this one. Like, stop.
Yeah.
And then he got to the point where he'd be like, well, Blake doesn't want me to tell the story, but I'm going to do it anyways.
Yeah.
And so it's like just kind of sharing stories, sharing community, and I don't know, showing up is I think a facet in our core values. I talked about his joy. That is a core value that like independently everyone in the company focused on when we were talking about who we are last year, or the beginning of this year. Actually, it was just like that was like a resounding and interesting one to see in a construction company, and I think that is his seed. And having joy in what we do and why we do it is something that he always lived, and he always embodied. And in some levels, it's why I don't do things I don't like doing, because he always taught me as a kid, like, if you're gonna be upset, don't fucking do it.
Right.
Like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't care if
Yep.
you don't care. Like, quit the sport, quit the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of dads aren't that way.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like, and he just kind of taught me, like, if you're gonna do something, do it with joy.
Yeah.
And he lived that way. So
I think that's something that you carry on, you know. First, I just want to say thank you, you know, for coming on to the show and being so vulnerable, sharing your story, sharing your father's story and his legacy. But that legacy is going to continue to live on forever within you, you know. And just from a personal standpoint, you know, a lot of the ways that he taught you, you continue to teach other people within your company. More specifically me,
Yeah.
you know, I did have a father growing up. He was a great father. We didn't work construction together. I always had a lot of resistance to working with him, kind of the alpha dog, don't tell me what to do. And just, I love your story with your father because you really embraced his intelligence and willingness to help you as a human being. And I didn't necessarily do that growing up.
Yeah.
And so I get a lot of kind of like that fatherly mentorship through you, you know, and this last year working with you has been really empowering. And there have been times where, you know, we are best friends, medicine brothers, all these different layers.
Yeah.
And we've had some of those confrontation moments where I felt like giving up. And I think even one time you said to me, like, if you're not happy, like, just don't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot that's come up for me of just like wanting to make you proud and wanting to like show you that I can work hard and be successful. And this year has been very transformational for me in my career and personally. And so thank you for inviting me in to your life and to your company. And I think it just speaks volumes to how you operate as a business owner and as a human being. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good reminder to pay attention to the little stuff and people. Thinking just about my father's pride and, like, you know, probably moments that I've even deprived you of, like, attaboys for no reason. A little bit because of, like, also how I was raised from my mom and my dad, and like what love looks like to me is sometimes mean.
Yeah.
And I know that you can be sometimes sensitive about that, and especially when I'm calling out vulnerabilities, and that's my love language, is like, hey, you're ugly, and I'm saying I love you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're just like, no, you're saying I'm ugly, and I don't like that.
Right.
And it's like, no, it means I love you. Shut up. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good reminder to pay attention to those kind of moments in life and honor them a little bit more, because yeah, no, it's been amazing to go through this ridiculous journey with you in the last 8 months.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
what we're building and accomplishing, we do not understand. And just a couple more months and it'll be done, right?
Right. We'll see. We keep saying that,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But it'll be done when it's done, and
Yeah.
it's going to be all a part of, you know, its own individual story, but also the greater story of Compton Construction and Harold's legacy as well as your legacy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if there's anything else that you want to share, have at her. But I feel like kind of wrapping this up.
I'm gonna. This is probably messed up to do.
No.
Well, no. Just let me tell you what I'm gonna do.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna read my own quote.
Great.
So in 2016, I got Columbus People to Watch through Columbus Monthly.
Yeah.
And it literally popped up on my Facebook reminder from yesterday, and so I like saw it and I sent it to my new girlfriend, and I was just like, yeah, this is cool, like, and because we're at that stage where no matter what I do, I'm hot to her, so. But she like sent me this quote that I said, and it's just like so kind of on the head about legacy, which is the question was like, what's your legacy going to be left behind? And I said, it's when your business runs on your morals, ethics, and ideals without you. And it's when people tell your story when you're no longer around, and people are creating new stories because of the stories they learned from you. And it's like, damn, like 20-something Blake was smart. Like, what happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Thank you.
That was just a cool quote that I got reminded I said.
For sure. Well, very fitting for talking about legacy.
Yeah.
And just plays really well off the story that you shared today.
Yeah.
Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Blake. I appreciate it coming on Deeper Foundations. Would love to have you on the show again. Always love sitting down, talking with you, being vulnerable with you. And so, yeah, thanks for everybody tuning in to Deeper Foundations. Again, thanks to Blake Compton. And, yeah, we'll see you on the next one.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to Deeper Foundations. If something you heard today resonated with you, share it with a friend. Leave a review or reach out. I'd love to hear what's landing for you. Until next time, keep building with intention, stay grounded, and remember, the deepest work starts from within. See you on the next episode.